a concept called hormesis, right? Hormesis simply means that a moderate amount of stress can produce a beneficial adaptation. And this is the part that most discussions completely miss. Your muscles start producing molecules called reactive oxygen species. Now, these molecules are often referred to as free radicals. But here's the twist. When free radicals are produced in small or moderate amounts, they don't just cause damage, they act like signals. They activate pathways inside your cells that tell the body that it needs to adapt. You might actually reduce the stimulus that tells your body to adapt. These studies suggest that large doses of certain antioxidants may actually blunt some of the signaling that drives adaptation to exercise. But this is where the story becomes more nuanced. What if the supplement that you're taking to reduce oxidation and inflammation is actually blocking some of the benefits of exercise? That sounds backwards, right? But most of us have been taught a very simple story. Free radicals are bad because they cause oxidation, while antioxidants are good because they reduce oxidation. And the more antioxidants you take, the healthier you'll be. But modern exercise physiology tells a much more interesting story because the same molecules that can damage cells are also the ones that tell your body to get stronger. Now, to understand why, I want to show you a simple graph that appears in one of the major position papers on antioxidants and exercise. So imagine an upside down U-shaped curve. On the horizontal axis, we have oxidative stress. In other words, how many reactive molecules are being produced in the body. On the vertical axis, we have adaptation and physiological benefit. On the far left side, where there's no exercise, oxidative stress is extremely low. And in that situation, there isn't much stimulus for the body to adapt. Nothing is really challenging the system, so nothing improves. As oxidative stress increases into a moderate range, something interesting happens. Adaptation goes up. Your body starts to respond to that stress by improving its physiology. Your mitochondria grow and multiply, and your antioxidant systems get stronger. Your muscles and cardiovascular system adapt. This is the sweet spot of the curve. But if oxidative stress continues to increase beyond that point, the curve starts to drop. Now the stress becomes excessive. Instead of adaptation, you start to see cellular damage, inflammation, and impaired recovery. So this inverted U-shaped curve describes a concept called hormesis, right? Hormesis simply means that a moderate amount of stress can produce a beneficial adaptation, while too little stress doesn't stimulate enough change, and too much stress causes damage. So fasting is a great example of hormesis. You're temporarily challenging your body, and it responds by becoming more efficient, improving how it uses energy and increasing processes like autophagy, which helps clean up damaged cells. Cold plunges and saunas are also examples of hormesis. They stress the body in different ways, and in response, your body adapts by improving its resilience and overall function. But exercise is one of the best examples of hormesis in biology. When you lift weights, you run, or you do high-intensity interval training, your muscles start producing molecules called reactive oxygen species. Now, these molecules are often referred to as free radicals, right? So what exactly is a free radical? I mean, at the chemical level, a free radical is a molecule that has an unpaired electron. And electrons prefer to exist in pairs. So when a molecule has an unpaired electron, it becomes highly reactive and unstable. And to stabilize itself, that molecule will try to steal an electron from other nearby molecules. And when that happens, it can damage important structures inside cells like proteins and lipids and even DNA. And so that whole process is called oxidative stress. Now, if free radicals accumulate faster than the body can sort of like neutralize them, then they can contribute to cellular injury and long-term disease processes. So in that sense, free radicals can be harmful. But here's the twist. When free radicals are produced In small or moderate amounts, they don't just cause damage, they act like signals. They activate pathways inside your cells that tell the body that it needs to adapt. So your cells respond by strengthening their own antioxidant defenses and improving energy production. One of the most important systems involved in this process is called the KEAP1 NRF2 pathway. When reactive oxygen species increase, this pathway activates genes that increase the production of your body's own antioxidant enzymes like superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase. In other words, the stress that you apply to the body through fasting or cold plunges or exercise or whatever, that teaches the body how to defend itself better in the future. And this is why exercise is so powerful. Exercise temporarily increases the oxidative stress, but that stress pushes the body into this beneficial middle of that inverted U-shaped curve, right? And over time, your body becomes more resilient. Now, this is where antioxidants enter the story. Antioxidants neutralize the free radicals. That's their job. They donate electrons to these unstable molecules and stop them from reacting with other cellular structures. And that sounds like a good thing. And in many situations it is. But remember that inverted U-shaped curve, right? If you remove too much of the oxidative signal by having supplements that quench all the free radicals, you may move yourself back towards the left side of the curve, where you might actually reduce the stimulus that tells your body to adapt. And this idea has actually been tested in many studies. In 2008, a study by Gomez-Cabrera examined endurance training with high-dose vitamin C supplementation. And the researchers found that vitamin C reduced the activation of pathways involved in mitochondrial biogenesis. In other words, the making of mitochondria. So the muscles didn't adapt as strong of an endurance adaptation. Then in 2009, a famous study by Ristow looked at what happened when people exercised while taking vitamin C and vitamin E, two powerful antioxidants, and participants trained for several weeks. Half of them took the antioxidants, the other half did not. And the group that exercised without antioxidants improved their insulin sensitivity, but the group taking the vitamin C and the vitamin E did not experience that same improvement. And that's because the antioxidants appeared to block some of the metabolic benefits of exercise. And then in 2014, another study by Paulson again tested vitamin C and vitamin E during endurance training, and they found that antioxidant supplementation altered some of the mitochondrial and cellular adaptations to training. So taken together, these studies suggest that large doses of certain antioxidants may actually blunt some of the signaling that drives adaptation to exercise. But this is where the story becomes more nuanced, because not all antioxidants behave the same way. And this is the part that most discussions completely miss. People tend to treat all antioxidants as if they're identical, but biologically, they fall into different categories. The first category is the direct scavengers. These antioxidants neutralize free radicals directly, like vitamin C and vitamin E are sort of classic examples. They essentially act like a chemical sponge soaking up these reactive oxygen species molecules. And that can be helpful when oxidative stress is excessive. But if the goal is training adaptations, then large doses of these direct scavengers may actually remove the signal your body uses to improve. Now, the second category includes what you might call signaling or hormetic antioxidants. So instead of directly neutralizing the free radicals, these compounds actually create a mild stress signal that activates protective pathways inside the body. One of the most important of these pathways is that NRF2 system that I mentioned earlier. So compounds in this category essentially stimulate your body to produce more of its own antioxidant defenses. Polyphenols are a good example of that. Or sulforaphane, right, which comes from broccoli sprouts. Sulforaphane is becoming a popular antioxidant example. And many plant polyphenols and flavonoids, they work in a similar way. But rather than simply shutting down the oxidative stress, they actually help the body to become more resilient to it. And lastly, there's a third category. These are compounds that have antioxidant properties, but are often used for like broader clinical reasons, right? Things like CoQ10 or glutathione. They support mitochondrial function and cellular metabolism. And their value may depend more on the individual or the clinical situation than whether someone is like trying to maximize their athletic adaptation. So when someone hears that antioxidants are great and everyone should take them, that's not entirely accurate. And on the other hand, when someone hears that antioxidants may actually blunt the benefits of exercise, and they conclude that all antioxidants are bad, I mean, that's not entirely accurate either. The real question isn't whether antioxidants are like good or bad in this binary way. The real question is which antioxidant and at what dose and for what purpose and at what time. Because exercise itself already strengthens your body's internal antioxidant systems, like we said earlier. In fact, people who train regularly often have higher levels of endogenous antioxidant enzymes than sedentary individuals. But there still may be situations where additional support makes sense. So like periods of extreme training stress, back-to-back competitions, poor recovery, environmental stress like altitude or competing in excessive pollution, or maybe specific clinical conditions. Now, in those situations, extra antioxidant support may be good in controlling oxidative stress, because in those situations, targeted antioxidant support may help control excessive oxidative stress without interfering with long-term adaptation. So the takeaway from this research is not that antioxidants are all harmful. It's that biology is way more sophisticated than the old model of free radicals being bad and antioxidants being always good. Exercise works because it stresses the body, and that stress creates signals, and those signals create adaptation. And if we blunt those signals too aggressively, we may end up reducing some of the benefits that we are intended to get from exercise. So the goal is not to eliminate oxidative stress, right? The goal is to stay in the sweet spot of that inverted U curve. Just keep enough stress to stimulate the adaptation, but not so much that the system becomes overwhelmed. And understanding that balance is where real physiology begins.